certain tape sounds, plug-in sounds, big bottom sounds, EQs that have large bottom, EQs that have small, bright EQs.
So we know you use a lot of Antelope gear. What else you got in here?
Oh, you name it. I got stuff. I got a lot of stuff. I mean, but to me, I always found like, I have the most perfect setup in the world. What's my weak point? What's my weak link in the whole chain? And I found.
Why do I need to send my tracks to a mastering engineer?
Why? I mean, why do you need to, eat in a restaurant? Because you can't do it at home. Within 30 seconds, I know this thing sounds perfect, or it needs more bottom, needs more top, needs more air, needs more boom, needs more compression, whatever it is.
Howie Weinberg, ladies and gentlemen.
How you doing?
What in the heck are we doing in Los Angeles?
Yeah, good question. I was a legend in New York for 30 some odd years, but I found the whole recording industry seems to have moved out west. New York is it's difficult to do things there. It's difficult to get studio space. It's expensive. Here it seems like every band it has a studio and has a garage. They have a house. In New York, you have a studio apartment. 8 guys living in. It's just very difficult to have a nice big space like this. I even brought. He can show you. I even brought my my subway sign from New York City. So just in case I forget what the subways are like, I can just look at where the D train is.
Are you closer to most of your clients now, or most of your bands are out there?
Not only closer, but it's it seems like most of my clients were just to come out to attend a session in New York was a complete pain in the ass. They got on a plane and they got to send the files if they want to be there and they want to make a tweak. They want, can I come in? Blah blah blah. And so I found it much more convenient. And the funny thing is, they want to know that you're in the neighborhood. Right. They don't care if you're if you're 20 miles away, and they'll never show up.
Right.
They just want to know you're in the neighborhood, you're in the hood.
Right.
New Yorkers just feel like it's just overdone, overexposed craziness all the time. Here it's laid back. You sit back. We work on a record. We sit out and have coffee. There's a house upstairs. I make a client some barbecue. There's very much nice patios. You sit out in the sun. In December you can't do that in New York.
After all these years, you sound as enthusiastic about mastering as any new mastering engineer I know.
You got to keep realizing every new project is a new, there's something new out there again. Because I started out when in the early '80s, and everything was new kind of rock music, new hip hop music, new rap music, new R&B type music. Everything was changing from drum machines, from real drummers to cheap drum machines, to like digital stations, to analog again, back to digital, back to analog, back to digital, and now we're just back to digital again, and now somewhat analog because people are really investing in turntables now and analog sound. So it's like it's like a roller coaster, So you kind of have to have the best of both worlds. But you realize, a recording tape is still it has a more human vibe. You feel like you capture things in a I don't know, a nicer way. It's a little smoother, little more wall of sound, little more kind of accurate, so to speak.
Right.
It changes the sound, but in a really nice way, which I kind of like.
You seem to be really, really in tune with your
client base. You have to. I mean, in the end, they're the most important people. Their names are on the record, and you want to keep them involved. And when the clients come in, basically, you just kind of play them different ways their music can be presented. Whether it's certain tape sounds, plug-in sounds, big bottom sounds, EQs that have large bottom, EQs that have small, bright EQs.
How many options do you give them when you give them a master? Does it depend?
Generally speaking. Half the time they want a million options. The other half they say, you do whatever you want, okay? I don't want to screw you up,
Do you still give them an option or two?
Absolutely,
then?
Yeah. Because in the end, options, will kill you, but they will also save you because, if somebody's listening, a lot of times I'll do, I'll do test files for clients and they'll go, oh, I don't like that one. They play 2, yeah, I love that one. Or play 3, oh, they love that one. So you want to have one that's more like kind of straightforward, and you want to have a couple ones that are a little crazy, magical, so to speak.
So different settings, different gear,
Absolutely,
different plugins.
Yeah, different plugins, different converters, obviously different EQs, different different routing. Sometimes you put compressors before the EQ, after the EQ. Sometimes you have the EQ in the end. Sometimes it's all relative, because generally speaking, if something sounds good, it sounds good. Okay, no matter how you slice it.
So how have all the hardware and software changes over the years changed your work or steered you in different directions?
Well, in a lot of ways, First of all, now you can do a session, basically, that somebody's done in England. They can send me the files in the morning, and I can do the whole session during the day, and then and by the evening I can send the files back, and then the next morning they open up their computer and there's the whole mastered session. And besides all that, it
saves some recalling.
Yeah, it saves recalls, and it really kind of, for me, it really puts me in a worldwide market that I never had before. You had to wait for a FedEx guy to come in, pick up a CD, bring it back, and then send it out. Oh, it didn't come in the next day. Here, the file sharing thing is really what's changed the whole record industry right now. So basically, you can do a session anywhere. I could be in Pittsburgh, or I could be in Buffalo in a basement, and it wouldn't even matter. But being close to where all the producers and engineers are, which is in LA or in this Laurel Canyon area, just this.
At least you're in the same time zone, and
it's really important.
Keeping similar hours, and
to let to let them know I'm one of the guys here now. I'm local.
Antelope, you started using the clocks 3-4 years ago.
Sure.
I remember you did a YouTube clip for us, and I think it's our most viewed clip. You were pretty excited at the time.
Well, at the time, I still am, because, basically, you're in a competitive business here, and anyone, and you have 2 or 3 engineers doing the same work, and one just is a little bit better than the others, and I found with the Antelope, especially the clocking, especially 10M and the Trinity, I found it gives me a little bit of an edge over my competitors, even though before I had another clock, which was good, but it wasn't giving me an edge. And in this climate, you need an edge. Bottom line is, on any converter, you don't want, you want to hear what goes in and the same as goes out. Okay. So in other words, we were comparing the input to the output, the source to the playback, and it was as close as I've ever heard on any converter. And I've done this, I've used Lavery's, I've used Aurora's, I've used everything, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to the source. And which for me is, I'm doing, I'm not working as a converter to have a sound. I wanted to just take whatever I'm processing, I'm doing, and putting it in digital and playing it back just as I heard it. I find it also to be one of the most well-made pieces of gear. It's well thought out. It has lots of inputs. It has lots of, it has USB ports, so you can control it from your computer, which is basically the way I use it. And you don't have to go, switching switches. You can just switch it right off your front end.
To be honest, I was kind of amazed. This Antelope converting is the only converting you use right now.
Well, I use the Zodiac as well on my right off my Pro Tools, because like I said, I've had it for a while and I've had nothing but amazing results. So I'm not somebody, if I get good results, I don't change things.
So what kind of projects have you been working on lately?
Well, I did this new Snoop Dogg record, this Fiona Apple record. I did a record with Jeff Lynne from ELO. We redid his whole.
That's an amazing
he
story.
He replayed all the biggest ELO hits. So in other words, he took them from scratch, because and he basically took him 3 or 4 years to do this. And he actually, he kind of made it identical to the stuff that he did in the 70s. And if you can imagine, say like, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, if they were still around like 15, 20 years later, 30 years later, hey, let's get another shot at this. He could get another shot at redoing some of the biggest hits of all time.
Let's go inside and look at the Wall of Fame.
Sure, absolutely. Arrested Development, Black Crowes, Garbage, Metallica, Def Leppard, Public Enemy, Run DMC, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Sheryl Crow, U2, Clash, Beastie Boys. This is a great podcast. This is one of my favorites of all time. It's the 20th anniversary of Nevermind.
That's beautiful.
12 million sold, not bad. This is another one of my favorite records of all time.
Not bad. Another not bad.
Blood Sugar, Sex Magnet. You got all kinds of. You got Rancid, one of the coolest bands of the 90s. Gorillaz, the 6 million seller. Smashing Pumpkins, Deftones, LL Cool J, Sinead O'Connor, Nirvana, Beastie, Pure, more Run DMC, Rob Bass, the Cult, more Smashing Pumpkins, more LL Cool J. This is a very cool record. We have no Modest Mouse with platinum record here. The Beastie Boys, Licensed to Ill, Everlast. We got David Lee Roth. We have Pantera, Scorpions, more Def Leppard. This is one of my favorites of all time with Clash and the Greatest Hits record. Jeff Buckley, Grace, amazing record. The Killers, Jamestown, Paul's Boutique. We have Batman by Prince. We got Cheap Trick. We got more Garbage. Cypress Hill, one of the coolest rap bands of the 90s.
You ever get out and see some of these bands live?
I saw them for years, yeah. I gotta keep my ears safe. Rush, a couple of Grammy nominations. This was a cool record. I keep it right by my club. 3 Feet High and Ryan, one of the seminal records of all time. Tool, Undertow, the first Tool album.
We went to see a Prince concert a couple months back.
Prince is amazing.
How was that show at the Forum?
He's a classic, man. He's like, there's only a few of him around.
So we know you use a lot of Antelope gear. What else you got in here?
Oh, you name it. I got stuff. I got a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know where to begin. I can begin in the 60s. I got 2 of the most beautiful Pultecs made, EQP 1As, almost in brand new condition. They actually were used to belong to Mercury Records in the 70s and the 60s. And actually, I believe it or not, I've kept them this long, which is amazing. And I baby them. I only turn them on when I need them. And if I need them, I set them up an hour before. And it's the most beautiful analog sound ever made.
What is it about those old Pultecs?
They just have this wall of sound. It's this beautiful analog, tubey, wall of just smoothness and kind of creaminess. It's basically just a beautiful tube piece of gear.
Is that what you pull them out for? Is when you need that extra color?
Well, a lot of the hip hop stuff and the R&B stuff, it's all very big, big bottom endy. Very you want to have that wall of sound, that pretty heavy beat stuff, and this is perfect for that because. Especially if you're doing digital recording, which is maybe a little bright and you need to be smoothed out. You put it through that and it just takes all the edges off and just makes it gigantic sounding.
First in the chain, middle, end?
Well, I use that right in the beginning. Because this way, what I can do is I use that as in the first in the chain, and then I EQ off of that. Like I have one of these, the SPL, and this is a passive EQ. This is a little bit like a Pultec where you can boost and cut it in the same place. I mean, this is quite an amazing piece of gear. It's not for everything, but it when it works, there is no sound like this at all. It's 120 volt rails. It's the cleanest, most accurate sound, for cutting and removing.
And you were talking about the low end on that.
The low end is amazing. I mean, the 120 volt thing. I mean, I'm figuring out now. It's most analog consoles run at 60 volts, and this runs at 120 volts. So supposedly you get double the amount of headroom, which I find to be in mastering. Headroom is everything. Everybody wants super loud records, but they want them clean as a whistle. And that's what the great thing about the SPL stuff. I use their front end mastering console as well because it's all 120 volt rails, and basically you can just you can make super loud records super clean.
sounds like you really listen to the track and you say, okay, what's this need?
Exactly. And
Probably turn everything off, start from zero.
Sometimes the best sounding records I ever did, I just turned one knob. And some of them I turned 50 knobs, And there's 1,000 knobs on this console, and there may be only 3.
Any projects, any records that come to mind where you just really did very little?
Well, this like I said, I'm just finishing up. I'm checking out this Fiona Apple record, which, I think it took her 4 or 5 years in the making. And this is a record that is so dynamic and so like transparent sounding. And we tried to do the very minimal. Everything very minimal, because the mixer, Dave Way had mixed it. He was one of the top mixers in L.A. Mix it, and the mixes were perfect. And at first, I kind of got it, and I tried. The problem is, these kind of records, everybody still wants things loud. So at first, when I made it, I kind of got it up to like, competitive levels. They hated it. So they came back in and we took everything down quite a bit.
I noticed there's a lot of dynamic range on those, looking at those files.
Well, they were kind of happy we did it because it got people, it got the label people excited, but we came down to do it for real. And the second time around, we took all the levels down, made it super dynamic, and I have to say, I'm very proud of it because it has a lot of natural, natural loudness to it without sounding, without having to go and turn it up. The clients, they like loud records, okay? And they like stuff that's really competitively loud, but they like it clean, okay? You don't want to turn it up and hear distortion. And that's another thing why I love this Trinity, I love this 10M.
So you're walking a tightrope constantly.
Oh, every minute of the day, and my life is like that. And that's another reason why I like these Trinities and the 10M that's down there. But it gives me my first source. The source is perfect. I want it to come off my Pro Tools gear, and I just wanted to hear it exactly as the artist heard it.
So your first D-Day right now is the Zodiac. That's
the Zodiac
your playback.
is down there, but it's in a rack down there. I go right out of the Pro Tools, right in the Zodiac, which is clocked by the 10M as well. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've learned about clocking a lot over the years, and it makes a good piece of digital equipment amazing. And if it's an amazing piece of digital equipment, wow. And this stuff is pretty amazing, I have to admit.
She'll come out of the Zodiac and then you'll go to...
right out of the Zodiac, then it goes into my analog chain. It goes right in, directly into the SPL.
Do you do anything with the SPL at that point,
the SPL
processing-wise?
Well, there's no processing built into this.
Okay.
This is basically just levels and monitoring.
Okay.
Which is perfect, what I want. And it's got a patch bay built in.
And lots of headroom.
Yeah, and so basically, I don't have any patch cords anymore. It's got a master bay, which is basically all the outboard goes into the master bay, and it comes up on my controller here. So I can put any piece of gear in any different direction I want. I want the compressor first, compressor second. I want the EQ in the middle, 2 EQs in the middle, 1 compressor on the outside, converter on this side. It really gives me a chance to kind of to get the most out of the analog gear. Like everything else, like a lot of times compressors sound better right in the beginning of the chain because you can EQ off what the compressor does. Sometimes you like the compressor, you want the compressor you want it to compress after the EQ. Right. Everything is all dependent on
the source material.
On the source material and how I feel that day. If I feel like, I like more compression and or the client wants more compression, I can kind of smooth that out at the end.
So left side of the rack, up towards the top, you've got obviously a Furman, and then you've got...
Well, the Furman is just basically a power controller. I got this red Focusrite, which is, it's pretty much the standard. It's a big sounding compressor, very big sounding. I have a lot of settings that are pretty proprietary to me. Very minimal settings where you just don't hear a lot of compression and you hear more the line amps, the sound of it.
And that's one of the original or earlier
that's
Reds,
one of the best sounding compressors I've ever used. But it has a sound, so you got to be careful you don't kind of get in the way of whatever the client gave you.
And whose SSL is that below
this
that?
This is actually a custom-made SSL that a guy in LA had built. Modeling an SSL compressor just better. So I use that quite often.
Who
Tom
was?
Dowdy.
Okay.
He's a tech guy in LA, a very, very highly respected designer. And then I have the small Sontag, which is the latest version of their Masterberg style EQ, which is super transparent, super vibey. You turn a knob and wow, it's very.
But no detents.
No detents, so it's all vibey. You go like that until you find out where you like it. And to me, I like doing that because it just you feel like you.
That's the only rub on that EQ, from what I've heard from people.
It's not. There's no detents.
It's not recallable completely, but you just go off feel.
It's all by feel.
Right.
Yeah. And this one's exactly the opposite. It has this is the holy grail EQ where they're all half dB steps, detented. It's the latest version. And
surgical, recallable.
It's nearly perfect. Okay?
Lots of headroom.
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
It has a sound. It doesn't have a sound. It has a sound whatever you want. Okay, whatever you make out of it, it'll do. And then I have this, the Weiss. My Weiss. That's the original digital console they came out with, which is a pretty remarkable piece of gear. Where it's got digital levels on it, digital faders. It's got 6 bands of amazing digital EQ. It's got a digital de-esser, digital compressor. This was like the go-to digital sound in the late 90s, early 2000s, which I found still, it exists. It's still, the product is great. It's great. It's not, over the years, it's not going to get worse. I had a bunch of different A to D, D to A's on my on the record side and playback side, and all the good all the brands, the Pyramid, the Prism. I had that. I had the Laveries. I had the DCSs. I've had the Lynx. All of those. Okay, they're not bad, but to me, I always found like I have the most perfect setup in the world. What's my weak point? What's my weak link in the whole chain? And I found, the D to A to D conversion was it. Because if you have like the best gear money can buy, and hopefully the best ears, the link is one link that's always the most important, and that's your conversion. Okay, so like I said, I was using an Apogee before that, which sounded good, but once that got installed, it blew my mind because all of a sudden everything just sounded more accurate, more together, tighter, bigger, wider.
So now the big question.
Uh-oh.
When it leaves here, what are clients saying? What's getting out of these walls?
I've had it for about a month now, and the responses have been amazing.
And these are for people who you worked with
one
before
guy
you
who's
had
one of
it?
the top mixers in the world came up to me and said, Rich Costi, he says, "What are you doing? I've never heard anything like this, And I basically told him, well, Marcel came up here, dropped off the Eclipse, put another clock in the system. Now I have 3 clocks instead of 2, and I don't know. The whole picture's changed.
I got another question for you.
Sure.
You've been playing with the Zodiac for several months.
Yeah. Great piece.
If you're a home listener, an audiophile or a casual listener, and you want to hear how the record was made,
to be honest with you, the Zodiac to me, the beauty of it is it's hi-fi and it's also professional. It's got +4 ins and outs, and it also has -10.
It's not an overcritical sound. It's a good critical sound.
What I found is it's really neutral. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't take any away. It's really kind of, in a converter, you want neutral. You want something that, you're taking what the artist kind of made and reproducing that. You're not trying to make something different. If you want it different, try a different EQ, or try, you can try different converters that have tubes in it, or some proprietary ones that have weird circuits. But for my ears, I want something that reproduces exactly what the artist made.
I read all the time questions from new producers and new artists.
Sure.
Why do I need to send my tracks to a mastering engineer?
Why? Why do you need to, eat in a restaurant? Because you can't do it at home. But you can do it. You can. You can make a good steak at home, but you can go to a steakhouse and get a great steak.
Got to build a world-class kitchen.
Of course, exactly.
Got to have world-class utensils.
And more than anything else,
that's a good analogy.
I've done almost 2,000 to 3,000 records, so there's nothing I haven't heard, seen, possessed, session I haven't dealt with, any kind of artist, and that's kind of important in this day because you don't want somebody who's guessing. I get a mix and I know I played it within 30 seconds. I know if this thing sounds perfect, or it needs more bottom, needs more top, needs more air, needs more boom, needs more compression, whatever it is. I can
Tell
show
me about
you.
your room.
Well, the room is an Augsburger design room. I have basically a custom-made, Sterling modular console that really gives me a perfect listening spot, for my PMCs, which we can see over there. They're somewhat expensive, but like I said, I've used a lot of horns in my day, and I've used a lot of big ass horn type, big 15-inch, and these are more soft dome, more just punchy and accurate. Everybody, the PMC stuff is really good, I have to admit. So they dropped these off one day, and like anything else, okay, and then of course he goes away grinning, and then like 2 weeks later he goes, "What do you think?" He goes, "Oh, I think I got to buy them." The clients and everybody loves them, So basically, I have my big PMCs, and I also have small KRKs that I've used for like 20 years. And
What did George do in the room that was so spectacular
this was like
for you?
I think what he did is just capture, it's a perfect size room for mastering, because not too big, not too small. I mean, the front end is very dead, and it's kind of live and dead end kind of thing. Very just very kind of punchy and tight. I mean, I don't know how rooms are designed. All I know is when you put a pair of speakers in and you turn it on, and if you don't have to move them around much, and you don't need to, and if they sound perfect right away, the room sounds great. It's a well-designed room. It's like, the best design rooms, basically you put the speakers in, you turn them on, and they should sound perfect.
So tell me about plugins. Do you use them?
I'm not a big plug-in guy, only because I'm not from that school of plug-ins. I believe, I want something where I can turn the knobs. I want a digital or analog piece of gear I can actually vibe with, more than use on a mouse.
But there's some
I've used a bunch of tape plugins. Stephen Slade, who's in one of my cohorts here, he makes a tape plugin which sounds fantastic, and actually he used my Studer A80 to emulate it. And there's a bunch of EQ plugins. Noise reduction plugins are great. Certain EQ plugins are okay. I like plugins for that emulate kind of a big tape sound, and the stuff that reduces noise or cleans up cleans things up in a way analog can never do. The best plugins I found are noise reduction plugins, or plugins that kind of
perform a specific task.
Exactly. I try to minimally use plugins. If I hear one I love, I will use it. And the one I've heard so far I love is one that emulates tape, which I can use right on my source, because that's you want.
And
right
that's not even out yet, right?
No, but we've been testing it, and it's pretty good.
And that's
Cool.
That's Stephen Slade.
Stephen Slade's VTM, and it's something I helped him develop. And like I said, because I have an amazing sounding Studer A80 RC, which has kind of tape, very much 80s, 80s kind of big fat transformer sound. It has the same electronics as like a Studer 800, which is, everybody agrees is one of the best sounding analog tape machines ever made. So it kind of emulates that big old transformer sound. And I've been using it on a bunch of products, and like I said, I've been having great results with it.
Howie, thanks for your time.
Can I show you around the other? Yeah. You want
On the way out, let's take a look at the Wall of Fame again.
Okay.
I'm looking at your photograph, but I'm never looking back. And if I ever see your face, I'll be dreaming, 'cause this life